Hey, folks, Eric Stacklebeck here. Welcome to a very special Watchman Newscast live stream, our second of the day, because there was an assassination attempt on Donald J. Trump, the 45th president, perhaps the 47th president of the United States. Folks, if you had any doubt whether Donald J. Trump was a survivor, he literally just survived an assassination attempt at a campaign rally in Butler, Pennsylvania, a little bit north, I believe, of Pittsburgh. And folks, where do we begin? This broke a few hours ago. Everyone's seeing it now. Let's start first and foremost, the iconic image now of President Trump emerging. He was on the ground for several seconds after the gun whizzed by him. I mean, apparently grazed his right ear. He was covered in blood, but he hops up and he pumps his fist to the crowd and says, "Fight."
You see something that said,
as an
take
American
a look
flag
what
is behind him. So needless to say, a pretty iconic scene and one of the most, this is the kind of incident where you will remember where you were when this happened. How's that? I was actually at the gym and then I see this come across TV. I'm throwing a suit and tie on. I'm coming in here to our TBN studio to do live news updates and to come to you live here in the YouTube channel. We've got a lot to unpack here on this live stream. Let me just lay it all out there. Whether you like President Trump or you don't like President Trump, I believe God Almighty had a hedge of protection around the man today. I think that's pretty undeniable. Ever since he came down the escalator in June 2015 and declared his candidacy over 9 years ago, there has been an absolute relentless, I believe, demonic barrage against this man. The legal system, the justice system, all aligned against him. Now an outright assassination attempt, and he's still standing. And he's fighting on, literally pumping his fist and saying, "Fight, fight on." There's something deeper here. This is a spiritual battle we're locked in right now here in the United States, and he's at the tip of the spear of it. And he may not even know that he's at the tip of the spear of it, but there are forces aligning against this one man who, look, folks, listen, Donald Trump is 78 years old. Although I just interviewed him back in May, I was face-to-face with him. This is not Joe Biden. Donald Trump is sharp, mentally focused, had a great interview with him back in May. You saw it here in the channel. We posted it. But he doesn't need this. He's 78 years old. Most 78-year-olds will be riding off into the sunset with their grandchildren, especially after they've been through what he's been through over the past 9 years, living hell. Yet he still fights, and he still does this for this country. Again, you might not like him. Whether you like him, you don't like him. The man is in it. He truly wants to make America great again. Now, you may not agree with him, but he's in this for the right reasons, whether you like his policies or like him or not. Again, he could be anywhere. After what he has suffered through and his whole family's gone through over the past 9 years, he could have gone anywhere. Again, off into the sunset. He's got the money to do it. But he's still standing and fighting for America, and today it nearly cost him his life. We want to unpack a bunch here. How exactly did this happen? Now, the Secret Service obviously shielded him at the podium and took him to the ground. That's great, and he thanked them, President Trump, in a statement. And by the way, I'm coming to you. It's around 10:15 Eastern time in the United States. There are reports that President Trump, he's out of the hospital, and he may actually attend a UFC fight tonight. And if that happens, talk about bringing the house down. But how did this shooter, who's dead, by the way, and we also have to mention before we go to the clip from the event, the shooter is dead, as of now, unidentified. We don't know who it was yet. It was a male, but he killed a person right behind President Trump. President Trump, it appears that the bullet grazed his right ear, or all the details are still kind of emerging. But a person behind him, a poor, unfortunate person, just a rally, a spectator, was killed, and another is in serious condition. Folks, this was an absolute, and imagine if this assassination attempt was successful. What would that have done? And we'll talk about that as well. But I believe God's hedge of protection was upon Donald Trump today. I think it's pretty clear. And listen, the shooter was on a roof. How was he able to wriggle up on that roof? Secret Service everywhere. Wow. A lot of questions here. Pretty major security gap there, it seems. Now, he was killed instantly after he fired shots, but not before he almost killed the president, 45th and again, perhaps 47th, and killed another person and wounded seriously another. But let's go to the footage real quick, folks, this is just stunning on so many levels. Not only the assassination attempt, of course, but President Trump's reaction to it, which, whether you like him or not, and no matter what your political persuasion is, I was inspired watching this, the fight in this man. Take a look.
You see something that said, take a look at what happened. Oh.
Watch out.
Folks, there you have it. Seeing this again, I was just at the gym earlier, and this comes over the TV screen. It was surreal. And I was out of that gym pretty quickly and into the studio to bring you an update and to bring our TBN viewers an update here at our DFW headquarters. But what else can you say? I mean, the man's a fighter. To hop right up and pump his fist and yell, fight. This is a scene that I will never forget. I don't think, and even the Trump haters, I think, have to begrudgingly give the man his due. He got up, brushed himself off, and said, hey, I'm still fighting after someone nearly took his head off with a bullet. Folks, millimeters. I mean, it was that close. And let me tell you, I've been shot. I have a bullet in my right hip. With President Trump right here, the bullet, a 22 caliber bullet in my right hip. And I can tell you a few things about it. Number one, in my case, and this is a story, how it all happened. This is a story for another time. My testimony, it's part of the way God, a hedge of protection on my life in that case, and part of my journey to the Lord and giving my life to Jesus. But millimeters from my femoral artery, I would have bled out and died. It was a miracle that I lived, but I can tell you this. In that moment, it happens very fast. The bullet in the President Trump's case grazed his ear, apparently. I don't know if it took off some of his ear. God forbid. I hope not. He was covered in blood, obviously. You saw the footage there. But I can tell you it happens fast. You hear it, and then you feel it. And for me, I described it like someone backed a car up into my hip. And I'll tell you that I didn't fall on the ground with 22 caliber. President Trump was shot with a larger caliber today. But just pure adrenaline. I mean, I think President Trump there had pure adrenaline. My adrenaline, I ran. I was shot in the hip, and I didn't hit the deck, but I ran right away, somehow with a fresh bullet in my hip. Again, another story for another day, but I'm just giving you, as someone who was shot, I'm giving you a window into kind of what it feels like. It's, you hear it, you feel it, and then the adrenaline. That was my experience. It seems like President Trump had something kind of similar to that too, and he released a statement kind of saying as much. But I think that adrenaline in the moment, he said, let me get my shoes on. Apparently his shoes came off when he fell to the ground behind the podium, and let me get up and fight. I mean, wow. It's almost like you don't process it in the moment. I remember being in the car afterwards, someone's rushing me to the hospital, and it's starting to sink in. I have a bullet. I'm shot. I had basketball shorts on. I was playing pickup basketball when it happened back in my hometown of Philly. And this pool of blood's growing and growing, and there's a hole in my shorts, and you think, I'm going to die. So it all kind of sinks in. President Trump probably hasn't even had time to process this yet. But when he does, I hope and I believe the first thing he does, or he will do, will be to thank God Almighty, because I believe God's hand of protection was on the man today. This shooter, seemingly from a rooftop, had a clear shot. And folks, again, how that happens, there are reports that President Trump's team and RFK Jr.'s team, by the way, have asked for extra security, extra Secret Service, and have been rebuffed by the Biden administration's Department of Homeland Security. Surprise, surprise. And look, this is today, it's shocking, but folks, isn't this predictable in a way? Over the last 9 years, the mainstream media and the Democrat Party have built President Trump up to be the next Hitler, a modern day fascist, a Nazi, the end of America, the end of democracy, the end of it's really America's a constitutional republic, but I digress. But when you make someone out to be the devil incarnate, is it any surprise that people are taking shots at him and trying to kill him? Because right now, by the way, it looks like he's the favorite, folks, in November, even before today. And you got to think today is going to give Trump just a groundswell of momentum. But in the wake of that debate, even before the debate, but in the wake of the debate a little over 2 weeks ago, where Joe Biden showed, I don't know, how would we say that he's not up to the task of being the leader of the free world, needless to say. Now, if you're watching since 2020, when he was in his basement and not campaigning, you knew that already, but it was exposed for the entire world to see on June 27th during that debate. So obviously, Trump pulling ahead since then. And then this, look, anyone on the fence about this man, and again, I said a few times in the beginning of this live stream, whether you like him or you don't like him, I put that caveat out there. And I say that because everyone I've talked to who doesn't like Donald Trump, and he's a polarizing figure, right? When I press them and say, well, why don't you like him? Every single time, I can't stand the guy, his tweets, his personality, he's mean, he's got a big mouth. Okay. But what about his policies? You're not voting for a pastor. You're not voting for a pastor in chief. You're voting for a commander in chief. What about his policies? What in his policies do you disagree with? And you usually get a blank stare and a response of, I just hate the guy. Okay. But you can't name policies that were detrimental for the United States. Folks, big question. If you're an American like me, are you better off today than you were 4 years ago? I think you and I both know the answer. Are you better off under Joe Biden and left-wing leadership than you were 4 years ago under Donald Trump? I think we know the answer. But back to the shooter and how he was able to pull this off. And again, we don't know who it was yet, but I'll tell you what, this administration better release that information as soon as possible, because we have a right as the American people to know what went down here. And again, how a man on a roof with Secret Service everywhere was able to squeeze off, I think, 5-6 shots before he was brought down. We have a clip here, folks. Again, this was in Butler, Pennsylvania, not far from Pittsburgh. We have a clip of an attendee at the rally. Now, he was talking, I believe this was the BBC. He was talking to a British reporter in the wake of the shooting, the assassination attempt, and some stunning comments saying that, hey, we saw the shooter and we alerted authorities and they didn't do anything about it. Folks, take a look at this.
We noticed the guy bear crawling up the roof of the building beside us, 50 feet away from us. So we're standing there, and, we're pointing at the guy crawling up the roof.
And he had a gun, right?
He had a rifle. We could clearly see him with a rifle. Absolutely. We're pointing at him. The police are down there running around on the ground. We're like, hey, man, there's a guy on the roof with a rifle. And the police were like, huh, what? Like they didn't know what was going on. We're like, hey, right here on the roof. We can see him from right here. We see him. He's crawling. And next thing you know, I'm thinking to myself, why is Trump still speaking? Why have they not pulled him off the stage? I'm standing there pointing at him for, 2 or 3 minutes. Secret Service is looking at us from the top of the barn. I'm pointing at that roof, just standing there like this. And next thing you know, 5 shots ring out.
Folks, as you can see, this story is only just beginning. What that man just shared is stunning. I don't think he was lying. Seemed pretty forthright, and he saw this all unfold right in front of his very eyes. So, needless to say, let the questions begin. Let the praising of God Almighty begin, first and foremost, that President Trump is alive. That's number one. But number two, now the questions have to begin. How did this happen? How did he get into the event on a roof? People saw him, apparently, according to the one bystander, alerted authorities and nothing was done. And President Trump and RFK Jr., another independent candidate in this 2024 election, have been asking for more Secret Service protection. They're not getting it. What's the deal? The American people have a lot of questions right now. And again, even people who may not support Donald Trump, they don't want to see this. Any rational people, at least. They don't want to see people being nearly assassinated, even if they don't plan to vote for him. So people want answers. And all the answers, there needs to be transparency right away, as soon as possible. Because the American people right now are shaken by this, relieved on one hand, and I think there's going to be a lot of righteous anger. And I think a lot of, and how did this happen? Now, look, people are asking now, how did this happen? There's righteous anger. And I think a lot of people just gained a lot of respect for Donald Trump. If they didn't have it before, I already said, I interviewed the man in May, and you saw the interview here. And I asked him, why do you do what you do? Again, most people would have rode off into the sunset. You're 78, you've got grandkids, you're a wealthy man. Just hang it up, go home. You don't need this. All these people coming after you and your family. I didn't say that, but that's what most people would say. But the line of questioning, I said, look, why do you do it? And he said, it's simple. I truly want to make America great again. You can maybe disagree with policies, but you can't disagree with his motives. The man truly sees that this country is in major, major, major trouble. And he thinks he's the man to turn it around. And you know what? I think he's right. I think at the end of the day, only prayer, only revival will turn this country around. Let me preface it by saying this. It's revival or bust, folks, in the United States. If there's not a collective turning back to God, we're doomed no matter who is in office. But I'll tell you what, President Trump, when he was in office, did more for Christians, more for Israel than any president in my lifetime. Trump and Reagan were the best in my lifetime. He's a supporter, a defender of Judeo-Christian Western civilization. Regardless of his personal faith walk, I get it. I know people are going to say things. I get it. Some people have compared him to a Jehu, a figure from the Bible. Of course, you've heard Cyrus, that comparison. But all I know is the man's policies are beneficial for Christians and for Christianity and for the nation of Israel and for the United States, for the economy, for our national security. I got to tell you, and try this on for size. You see the images of Joe Biden, and look, folks, I say this with a profoundly disturbed feeling in my gut, in my spirit, that Joe Biden is incapacitated mentally, physically. I'm not laughing and pointing fingers at the man. This is dangerous. I'm alarmed. We have a gathering storm against this nation, led by Russia, China, Iran, and North Korea. They're seeing Joe Biden, the commander-in-chief, and they're licking their chops. They're salivating. They sense weakness. They sense opportunity. Then they see Donald Trump today nearly get his head blown off. Sorry to be so graphic, but that's what happened. And he hops up a few seconds after a bullet whizzes by his head and draws blood on him, pumps his fist and says, fight. Wow. Let's do a split screen of that. If you're Xi Jinping, the mullahs in Iran, Kim Jong-un, Hezbollah, Hamas, Erdogan in Turkey, Putin, who are you going to think twice about crossing? The man who's doddering across the stage and being literally led by the arm by his wife and by, at the G7 summit, the Italian prime minister, or a man who gets up seconds after a bullet grazes his ear, aiming for his head to kill him, and says, fight on. That's a leader. That's a man of strength. And it's a man of common sense in times where common sense is not so common. His policies are common sense. Although the Secret Service, I think, was having a heart attack and saying, where's your common sense? Probably when he hopped right up, they were having a heart attack, I'm sure. Nevertheless, a lot of questions here, of course. And this is kind of a fire hose of information right now, folks. I know I'm digesting and ingesting all of this just like you are in real time. But these are some of my preliminary thoughts, and we'll talk about this probably more tomorrow, certainly on the Stacklebeck Tonight Show on Monday on TBN. Remember, subscribe to this channel. We just had earlier in the day, by the way, a Middle East update. It looks like, not quite confirmed yet, but it looks like Israel eliminated Hamas's number 2 in Gaza, Mohammed Deif. If you missed it earlier, just check out under newscasts. It's right here in our archives. And again, be sure to subscribe and click the notification bell so you get alerts every time a new video is posted. Because, folks, look, twice in one day on a Saturday, we want you to get alerts when we're posting here. This is, folks, we live in Bible times. These are prophetic times. These are unprecedented times. You know, I can remember Ronald Reagan, the assassination attempt, I believe, was 81. I was 5. I'm 48 now, grizzled veteran, but I was 5. I'll never forget. I grew up in Northeast Philadelphia in a neighborhood I love called Fox Chase, and walking down the street with my mom. When we talk about this moment, you're never going to forget where you were. I remember walking down Rawn Street with my mom, and 2 women, young, probably late teens, early 20s, probably sisters, burst out of a house onto the street and said, "President Reagan's just been shot." I'll never forget it. I was 5, probably holding my mom's hand, walking down the street, walking to the grocery store. The president's been shot. And I remember it. 43 years later, I still remember that. Isn't that funny? Today, you will remember. For me, I mean, look, I was in the gym, like I said, doing a curl. I look up at the screen. What? But I'll remember where I was and what gym I was in. But you're going to remember this. But let's unpack the bigger picture. Someone said he was at the gym. Yeah, it's Saturday. One of our commenters here. It was like 5 o'clock on a Saturday. I was at the gym. Is that okay? Once in a while, I take a break. But I was at the gym. Now I'm here. Let's unpack it, folks. Big picture. What are our big takeaways from this? Number 1, Trump's a fighter. The guy's a fighter. He's a survivor. He's tough as nails. And you might say, "Oh, I hate him." But you know what? The guy's a fighter. And if he didn't win people over today, man, with his response to this, just iconic, legendary, epic. Something that could have been, though, other big takeaway, an all-time, not only tragedy, but folks, this if that was successful today, and thank you, God Almighty, that it wasn't, for the sake of this nation, for the sake of for President Trump, his family, folks, I shudder to think if it was successful, what would have happened in this nation. That's civil war footing. And the same could be said if Joe Biden was targeted in that way. We're in a dangerous time in America. That goes without saying, right? You knew that before today, the events of today. But now you really see the stakes. We're on a tightrope here. We're on the precipice of complete chaos and disaster. So needless to say, step number 1, get more protection, Secret Service, more security around President Trump and Biden and RFK Jr. Across the board, we don't want to see this. We can't have it in America. We were already at the brink as a nation. Thank God, Trump literally dodged a bullet today. That's number 1. Number 2, this is a time, I hope, the biggest takeaway, I think. Well, another takeaway, I alluded to it a few minutes ago. World leaders are watching and taking notes. Xi Jinping, the Ayatollahs, are saying, wow, this guy's pretty tough. And when he was in office, I love the story we heard last week. My friend Sage Steele interviewed some members of Congress, and they laid out how Trump handled the Taliban. Now, Trump also planned to move out of Afghanistan, to move U.S. troops out of Afghanistan. Biden did it in absolutely shameful, embarrassing, disastrous fashion in August 2021, as we know, a calling card of his administration. Trump did plan also to take troops out, but in an orderly, dignified fashion. And he told, in this great interview that Sage Steele did with a member of Congress, Trump told the Taliban leader, "If any American is harmed, I know where your home is. and we will kill you. And he actually showed this Taliban leader the GPS coordinates of his home. And then Trump left the room. That's peace through strength. And there's a reason there weren't any wars in that 4-year period when Trump was in office, because the dictators and despots of the world didn't quite know what to make of him. And they thought maybe this guy's just crazy enough to hit us hard. And the takeout of Qasem Soleimani in January 2020, the Iranian terror master, the takedown of Omar al-Baghdadi, the ISIS leader, and the list goes on, pulling out of the Iran nuclear deal, moving the U.S. embassy to Jerusalem. These were all moves showing strength and boldness. And we could go on with that list. And I can tell you that the tyrants of the world respect and fear strength. They don't respect weakness, mental incapacitation, physical decline, mental decline, wavering. They don't respect left-wing woke madness, gender madness in our military and recruiting videos. They don't respect a White House that declares Easter Sunday Transgender Visibility Day. And the American people don't respect that either. But this was a watershed moment in American history. I don't say that lightly, considering the stakes we're in. Certainly a watershed moment in this election. And the next few months, folks, fasten your seatbelts. And you know what? If you're a man or woman of prayer, I'm a man of prayer. I'm a follower of Jesus. And if I wasn't, I might be hiding under this desk right now and saying, what's next? It's one thing after the other. But I believe we are in Bible times, prophetic times. And Jesus never said it would be easy. Go back and read Matthew 24, the Olivet Discourse. Wars, rumors of wars, pestilence, famine, earthquakes in various places. Kingdom rising against kingdom, nation against nation. Welcome to 2024. And you could say, well, Stacklebeck, look, it's always been that way over the years. We've always had wars, rumors of war, earthquake, famine, pestilence, kingdom against kingdom, etc. Here's two things that are different. Number one, Israel. It exists, yet again, miraculously reborn in 1948, the ultimate prophetic super sign. Number two, technology. The technology we have today would truly enable one all-powerful world leader, his initials are AC, hint, hint, to rise to power with global governance, a digital currency, a cashless society. You might say that all sounds crazy, but there are some very influential and elite people right now who are discussing exactly this. And the apparatus and the infrastructure is there for a one world government. And all it needs is for that leader, that supreme leader, the Antichrist, to step onto the scene and take hold of it. The technology, folks. Look at China's social credit system as kind of a blueprint. It's kind of tough to go off the grid today, isn't it? In this interconnected online world. And the days of putting $1,000 in cash under your mattress, that'll be gone when a digital currency is enforced. But Donald Trump is standing against all of that. He's standing against, I believe, the beast system, a one world government push, a voice crying in the wilderness against that. And Netanyahu as well, Israel and the United States are two fiercely sovereign nations, when they have the right leaders, are two fiercely sovereign, nationalistic, patriotic nations. Personified by Trump, make America great again. Trump is America first, a nationalist, a patriot. Benjamin Netanyahu, an Israeli patriot. They put their country's interest first, as they should. And they're fiercely sovereign. Israel, they believe, Bibi believes is unique. Trump believes the U.S. is unique like no other nation. But that's not how the elites see it. This interconnected world, they would like it interconnected, not just through trade, commerce, technology, digital, but literally a one world government. Erase borders. Why do you think the radical left in this nation, which is in charge right now, Joe Biden doesn't know if he's coming or going, but there's radical leftists in his administration which are pushing the agenda. Why do you think that they've thrown America's borders wide open? Why do you think European elites have thrown Europe's borders wide open? They want a borderless society where nation states are weakened, where any sort of nationalistic pride in country is diluted when you have a massive melting pot in every country. These are bigger themes we'll talk more about here on the newscast. The Great Reset. Have you heard that term? But I say all that to say a guy like Donald Trump is standing in the way of that. He's saying, no, I'm not on board. I'm pulling out of the Paris Climate Accord. We could go on. I'm not on board. I'm pulling out of the Iran nuclear deal because the global elites might love it and the secular left, but it's not good for America. And I'm the leader of America. So I'm pulling us out of it. This was the modus operandi of world leaders throughout world history. Put your nation's interests first. Don't completely isolate yourself and shut yourself off from the world, but certainly put your nation first. You're not doing your duty as a leader if you don't do that. But Trump's been standing in the way of all these globalist plans. Folks, it was going to be all so seamless from Barack Obama to Hillary Clinton, and there you go. And Trump kind of messed up the plan. So they hate him with a demonic rage. They've gone after him legally. You twisted the justice system against him, kangaroo courts. Now there's an assassination attempt. Again, isn't this the logical outcome when the left and the mainstream media tell you he's Hitler incarnate? Who wants to live under Hitler? Is it any surprise that someone would take a shot at him? I'm sad to say that. But is this propaganda and the rhetoric for 9 years against the man and the hatred that's been built up, the lies told about him and the hatred it stirred in people against him, and you get one unhinged person and then you have what you have today. Now, let's see. Again, a watershed moment, folks. Let's see where this all goes now. Let's see the Democrats' rhetoric. Let's see the mainstream media, how they deal with this. They hate the man. I hate to use a word so strong as that, but they do. They hate the man. They've hated him for 9 years. Does this soften hearts? I don't know. But what I do know is this. This is one of the most perilous moments in American history. Folks, pray for this nation. Whether we have viewers from around the world, if you're an American, of course, pray for this nation. Wherever you are in the world, pray for this nation. We covet your prayers. It's a time of great delusion, and I truly feel like the enemy, and his name is the devil. You believe in God, you better believe in Satan. He exists. There's an enemy of our souls, the Lord of this world, and he's running amok, and he is on the march against America because the United States is really, in many ways, the last bastion holding up a pretty sinister plan of a one-world government, a secular, left-wing, progressive utopia in their view, where you will own nothing and be happy according to the World Economic Forum. Again, more on the Great Resetters on another newscast. But this is a time for prayer. If America falls, America is the last domino and America falls, dark days indeed. There's a shadow descending upon the Western world right now, folks. You saw the election results in Florida and Britain last week. France and Britain last week. The hard left gaining power. A shadow, a dark shadow upon the Western world. But maybe, just maybe, in the United States, this moment today will be a shot across the bow, a light shining in the growing darkness. Maybe God Almighty is giving this nation one last chance for revival. America has been a force for good in the world. The gospel has gone out from this nation. Maybe the Lord is giving us grace one last time. It's like Hezekiah. God gave him 15 more years. God, give me one more chance. Give us one last chance. Hopefully it's extended, an extended chance, years and years of great things. But at any rate, this nation needs prayers, and we covet your prayers, and pray for President Trump's speedy recovery, for his family. Whew, I know, folks, I was kind of all over the place a little bit in this live stream. kind of stream of consciousness here. But again, these are my initial thoughts, just coming here, just as you did, digesting all of this, and more to come here on the channel. Make sure to subscribe. We'll be coming to you all this week. We'll be talking about this a bunch, and of course, everything happening in the Middle East and why it matters to you, no matter where you live. Hey, God Almighty is still on the throne. God is in control. When the waves are crashing and the winds are roaring, Jesus is in the boat with you. Don't forget it. He will never leave you or forsake you. He will give you the peace that surpasses all understanding. If I didn't have him, I wouldn't be sitting here right now, believe me. So thanks for joining us. Have a great night. Pray and pray without ceasing, because it works. God bless you, and remember, never hold your peace. Hey everyone, thanks for checking out the Watchman Newscast. Make sure you hit the subscribe button so you never miss an upload, and tap the bell icon so you're notified every time a new video is posted. And don't forget to share your thoughts, insights, and comments below. Thanks for watching. We'll see you back here tomorrow.